by removing the degrees of freedom of his capabilities.
I'm not a monkey, I'm a free man!
To conclude the somatic engineering of combat, we see that this is an integrated system. We said the definition of the somatic engineering of combat was the disintegration of his breathing, structure, and movement. As an integrated system, we know that to control his breathing, we control his intent. To control his structure, we control his opportunity. And to control his movement, we control his ability. The earlier in this process that we intervene, the rest of the steps do not follow. So if we control his opportunity, we dictate his abilities. If we control his intent, we dictate his opportunity and his abilities. Like we said in conventional training, that most conventional training is based upon only that specificity of abilities, that offensive defensive paradigm. We said that in controlling his intent through breathing, the strategy was the ventilatory process. In controlling his opportunity through manipulating his structure, we did this through the solar-lunar polarity. And controlling his ability through manipulating his movement, we did this through the strategy of biomotor interference. Controlling his breathing robs him of the will to fight. Controlling his structure robs him of a launching platform. And controlling his movement takes away both his offense and his defense. We're going to see further that this entire somatic engineering of combat is less complicated, even though it's more sophisticated. So we see that this process of controlling his ability, working with his movements, that offensive-defensive paradigm, is very complicated. There's much involved. It takes 40 or 50 years to master that level of complicated strategy. If he does this, then you do this. And we know it goes awry. Murphy sits on our shoulder and screws us each time. This is highly sophisticated. As we move closer to controlling his will, to dictating his intention, to manipulating his breathing, you increase the level of sophistication. This entire process is the Ross system's means of taking arthrokinetics and applying it to whatever your field, whatever your venue of combat happens to be, whether it be sport fight, whether it be military close quarters combatives, whether it be law enforcement subject control. Any venue, you apply this entire doctrine, take the strategies, and enhance your personal capabilities. We found that the Ross process is an educational development in 3 phases, moving from a biomechanical appreciation to a neuromuscular or a proprioceptive appreciation to a psychophysiological, to an understanding of our entire organism. This development happens in 3 phases. And what we wanted to emphasize is that working on breathing, working on his intent, is not mastery of the psychophysiological, not mastery of the ultimate. When you begin training, just because you see a person working on what looks like he's working on biomechanics does not mean that he's a beginner as well. As you develop, you're seeing with a greater granularity, a more refined discernment of this internal event. As you re-review materials, as you continue to go to camps, as you continue to review this video and train, reviewing this video is not sufficient. But as you continue your personal practice and deepen it, you'll find that you'll move from this biomechanical appreciation, the raw, rote motion, which is far superior to conventional training anyway, to a neuromuscular or proprioceptive, meaning more of a kinesthetic appreciation of things that happen. You're responding at earlier and earlier times, meaning you're moving from ability to opportunity, controlling him in a structural way, to his intention, where you're controlling his entire function at such an early rate that the attack never happens. The physical assault never has the opportunity to develop. Now, this process of development in ROS takes a lifetime. So don't rush. Just focus on the basics. Continue to train. Continue to deepen your practice. Don't rush to what seems to be the paragon of the most efficient behavior, because it's not physical. It's not just physical. It's inside. And the more that you review the materials and the more that you practice, the more that you'll see. It'll seem like the text wasn't there before, like it was invisible, or you didn't hear those words spoken before, or you didn't see that move before. It was there. You heard it, but it didn't register. Because as we develop, we all increase our granularity, like looking through a microscope and increasing our vision, or backing away from a mosaic where it starts to take shape. Take your time, continue your practice, expose yourself to all of the principles and implement them so that ROS will give you the ability to catapult your development in anything that you do, in any aspect of physical culture. Now, I'll be using a new monkey, and what we're going to do is go through some different somatic relationships so that we see that this knee on diaphragm will be a paramount monitoring position, so that once again we're trying to optimize the ratio of stability and mobility and controlling him, and keep our maximal options for engaging or disengaging this monkey in case we have to deal with others. So when we're working here, what we're going to focus on is that ROS is not going to provide you with a host of positions. It's giving you a process of controlling him in the movement between. Somatic engineering is a method of controlling his intention, his opportunity, and his ability through the disintegration of his breathing, structure, and movement. So we've already discussed knee on diaphragm, but the first position that we're going to work on is moving from the knee on diaphragm here into moving and straddling one of his legs. So as he feels this, he inhales. I'm going to tell you that this monkey, Sean's going to be helping me by pretending to be stupid. He's going to be super aggressive. He's going to model aggression. And he's going to inhale. If I do this to Sean, we're going to be here forever, because he's going to relax and exhale, and he's been working on the mechanisms for years on how to withstand this and this relationship, and it's easy. It's easy once you understand it. Come to a camp to find out. But if you're controlling him here, you're going to focus on that intermittent rhythm of pressure on the diaphragmatic descent through his inhalation trigger. So Sean's going to help me by modeling that. As he inhales, I put on pressure, and as he moves away by shrimping out, that's right away that we're going to drop. Keep the pressure. We're adjusting the angle. It's not a change in position. It's constant smearing and grinding into his diaphragm to distort his structure. We keep this pressure on by changing the fulcrum from the knee, now it's the chest. If you can see let's turn this way. You're replacing the disruption of his ventilatory process with your chest and arching. Control his leg if you want. He's starting to slip out a little, so I'm moving up closer to the femur. And you're just riding. You don't really need these, as long as you continue to grind him and ride him into the ground. But remember that this isn't a position. It's not very gentle. And you'll see this, that this is something more intuitive that you'll see from the more active or aggressive styles of grappling. But it's not directly attended. Like, for instance, Shudo, Sambo, shoot wrestling, catch wrestling, they're all very active, very aggressive. But our direct intention is to control his intention. So first, breathing, then structure, then movement. First his intention, then his opportunity, then his ability. More sophisticated, less complicated. So you have to grind him into the ground, smear him to control his body so he's not thinking. If he's not thinking, he can't formulate a launch platform, and he can't get any offensive or defensive capabilities. Disrupting his structural alignment isn't just through the application of pressure to his diaphragm. You could do that by taking anything out of its natural alignment. Like for instance, his cervical vertebra. Anything that affects his core rather than his surface. This is his surface. This is his core. Drive into him. Anything, but watch how you apply pain. If you're applying merely pain, he's going to get super squirrely and spastic because he wants to move away and relieve the pain. I see this quite often, and we see this in every venue. Somewhere that's very obvious is in law enforcement. The pain compliance is an oxymoron. And unfortunately, it's doctrinaire in most departments where they're applying pain compliance in trying to get him to accept the officer's will. Sport fighting, we see this all the time. But it's not compliance. He's going to get spastic, and if he's super strong, you're going to lose your opportunity. So in applying pain, know that you're applying pain to cause movement, to change his structure, to apply the manipulation of his intent. So this is the first position. Okay, another term, back from this knee on diaphragm, this monitoring position. If this is a constant readjustment of the angularity of controlling his structure and breathing, when we move into this saddle position, this saddle mount, it's not stepping over, because this is a change in positional technique. You don't want to change from one position to another. You want to move while controlling his intention, while controlling his structure, while controlling his movement. So when you move from controlling his breathing, his intention, you rotate on your knee from here to come back. Some of you will remember from the grappler's toolbox, the shin box. You're sliding back and underneath. There's never a time where you're relieving slack from his respiration. From here, he's still being compressed. You're still coming up and regulating his ventilatory process, but not through pressure here. Like right now, I'm only controlling his lunar plexus. If I anchor this, he can sit up. He can bridge out. He can start to work. If I'm up super high, controlling his solar plexus, from here, he can bridge out. He has a host of tactics that he can work on. Think of it simplified. Sophisticated, but simplified. You control his breathing, and this is the best ratio of control between stability and mobility, right? We talked about this with knee on diaphragm. We're still controlling his intention, so he doesn't have his offensive, defensive capabilities. We've taken them away early in the game because we're controlling his breathing, through controlling his structure, through controlling his movement, all integrated. We're disintegrating his abilities. So, just one quick point. This again is not a position. It is a relationship of control. So, like if he were able to flip his legs out, all I'm going to do is bring legs in so I can drive in further. No matter where he moves, you're still controlling his will. So if he moves away from this pressure to his diaphragm because he can't breathe, you're still smearing and grinding him into the ground. Once again, you can still adjust his alignment so that you keep him in an unnatural position. As long as you do this, then later when we start applying submissions, it's biomotor interference. Remember, Ivan Kartunsky, we start from the center and irradiate out. Next position. Moving to...
Next we have football spin.
Okay, two designations we're going to use are cephalic and caudal.
Cephalic.
Yes, cephalic, not phallic. When we're moving cephalic, we move towards the head, no matter what the relationship is. When we move caudally, we move downward towards the lower part of the body. It's an easy designation that's used in all forms of sports physiology, especially in kinesiology and biomechanics. Get used to it because remember, Martial art in its highest echelon is the study, must be the study of human anatomy and physiology. So get used to it. Controlling his diaphragm. We've got him. So if we do this caudal spin, when we move, he's getting spastic, he's super strong. All we're going to do is high step over, switch to the other direction. But notice that the pressure is never being removed. We're grinding this into his guts. So spin this way. I'm going to relieve the pressure just for a second. We can step to the side and work down here, and this is going to be important later. Remember Ivan Kartunsky? If he's defending with this leg because of this pressure here, now we have the cephalic knee upwards instead of the caudal knee because of the change in the spin. If we're here, we've controlled 1 to control 2 to control 3 to control 4. So if this is here, we're still controlling his attention, and then we can begin to work. But it's going to be a mauling rather than, okay, working for position, or tightly working for submission. No, because then we're in this chess game. I have offensive capabilities, he has defensive. He can switch and go offensive, and then I have to go defensive. That could last for hours. We only have a matter of seconds. So you have to keep constant control to monitor his intention, steal his will to fight, to monitor his structure, to steal his launching platform, to monitor his movement, to steal away both his offensive and defensive capabilities.
The last concept